If I can call the meeting to order, the first item on the agenda is call to order, and I have actually accomplished that and only 2 minutes late. I'd like the record to reflect that. The next item, and I don't want to go too fast because I know Joan is still here and going to join us. But the next item is adjustments to agenda. We're adding an agenda item, 7.5, for a recommendation for appointment of a new principal. And having added that agenda item, we're going to move that agenda item out of action matters, and we're going to have that immediately after audience communication. The second agenda item we're going to add is 6.2, for want of a better term, board development. We reorganize in March, and there's some things we need to talk about with respect to reorganization. Some things have been developing, none of which have anything to do with me. And so we need to get reasonably clear on that. That brings us to, excuse me, are there any other adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none, we move on to audience and communications. We have a delightful audience with us tonight. And I think we're actually going to get some conversation from this audience, but perhaps not in audience and communications. Perhaps it's going to be in presentations. If I've guessed correctly, then we are at the point where we've finished audience and communications, and we're going to turn to recommendation of appointment to a permanent principal position. And before we do that, I'm going to ask our interim principal to leave us so that we can talk in his absence. And I had threatened to do this in somewhat unseemly language, but in deference to the fact that we're on television, I've opted not to do that. We'll send someone out to get you, Jeff, within the next 45 minutes.
It'll either be a white smoke signal or a black smoke signal.
How do you know that?
So the action item, we're going to need a motion at some point, but I think before we have the motion, we need the introduction by Elaine, who under law makes the recommendation to us. When that recommendation is made, then I'll ask for a motion and we can proceed.
Okay.
So Elaine, I'm going to turn it over to you.
The law is really clear that the superintendent brings a candidate to the board. And the law is really clear that the board either accepts that candidate or says, no, bring another candidate, and then the superintendent can bring one more candidate, and that could go on. I am really happy to tell you that I am bringing a candidate to the board, and it is after a process that started last fall. We used School Spring to find candidates nationally. We had candidates from, I think, 11 different states, 25 different candidates. In my conversation with my colleagues, we had a pretty good candidate pool. From those candidates, the 11 committee members that included 3 board members, Lorna, Susan, and David, and 4 CVU faculty, Carl Recchia, Andre Lachance, Patty Thomaschott, and Michelle Fongemi. 2 community members, Jen Prue from Heinsberg and Cynthia Reyes from Williston, and an unbelievably wonderful student, Greg Goldman, who is a junior here, and he was honestly very, very amazing. So the committee met to review protocol, then met again to look at the candidates, choose candidates. From the 25 we selected 5 for first round interviews. We ended up interviewing 4 because one of those candidates called us on that day and canceled. So that was a big disappointment. But in that second round, 2 candidates came forward. One, Jeff Evans, current interim principal, and a candidate from Connecticut, and both were really great candidates we were very interested in pursuing. Our initial thought was to do a site visit to the second candidate and then do interviews, but there was a storm in between. So we did second round interviews. We also had benefit of Bob Mason meeting with faculty and staff with both candidates. So introducing the candidates and having the candidates share their vision for CVU in the next 5 years, and then taking questions, and did the same thing with students. I had the benefit of also meeting with the entire student council, which is a group of like 30 or 40 kids, also quite an impressive group. And with at least 40 staff members, surprised to me because I had met with about 40, 50 staff members last spring. So at the end of the second round of interviews, the unanimous recommendation of the committee was to recommend Jeff. And I am thrilled tonight to recommend Jeff Evans. He has been in the job for 7 months, and he has done every part of the job in really an exemplary way. And I heard that from staff, I heard that from students, I hear it regularly from parents, and I hear it from the people that I work with in the central office, and I observe it myself. So my recommendation to you, CVU Board, is that we hire Jeff Evans as the permanent principal for CVU.
And I'll accept a motion. And there's a second. Do we have discussion about whether we want to appoint Jeff Evans to the job of principal in a permanent capacity?
So my only thing is just to be certain that he's, like I ask for every candidate, is he fully certified? Because he wasn't at some point along the way.
He is now.
Okay, thank you.
David.
And that's
Yes,
a good
ma'am.
question, and our new protocol insists that we do that in the first round.
Thank you.
Is it still a July 1 hire?
Yes. Yes, he's still
Jeff-
the interim.
Yes, Jeff will remain in name the interim principal until July 1, and then he will be given a regular contract. Although for all intents and purposes, with the appointment this evening, assuming that that is the action that we take, he will be the permanent principal and will be acting as that. That's just pragmatic. Yep. Anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. As a matter of fact, it is a unanimous vote to appoint Jeff Evans as the permanent principal with a contract that will begin July 1. Thank you all. Now the question comes, should we leave him out in the hall for half an hour to see if he gets nervous? Or should we get him back in? You're going to bring him back in? Okay. I'm not sure whether we need Jeff to do the introductions for math best practices. No, I'd like you to get up and introduce yourselves and start.
Got it.
Yeah.
So as some of you know, I'm Monica Carter. I've taught math here for many, many years. The Lennis kids, the Rath kids.
My kids.
Your kids too?
Yeah, but I have a different last name.
Okay.
Kaufman.
Started without you.
So that's quite all right. I like the efficiency.
So
was 4 to
this year
5,
I'm
but
working
you're
in
in.
the capacity of math teacher and math instructional coach. So I'm here to talk with you about the work that we're doing with best practices in the math department. I'm excited to be here to share this work with you, but I feel really challenged, and Jeff's had to have several conversations with me about this. I feel challenged in that I only have 20 minutes to do it because the work is really great, and I'm just hoping I can do it justice in that period of time. So I brought a couple things for you. This stack of paper, when you glance at it, you'll quickly realize that these are just some examples of student work that comes out of lessons that are designed in the way that I'm going to describe to you tonight. And then this second sheet are some quotes from students and teachers about how they're feeling about this work as we're implementing it this year. I think probably the most powerful thing that I have to share with you is this piece right here. Because when I read these, it makes me really proud of what we're doing and excited about where we are with math instruction. So if you just want to pass those around.
Sure, thanks.
Okay, so my goal in this presentation is to share with you the rationale for why we're doing this work, what the implementation process looks like, what the impact is on teaching and learning, and then just try to give you a snapshot of what our professional development looks like when we get together to do this work. So I want to jump ahead actually to this slide, and it's a little difficult for you to see, but what the current educational research is telling us is that effective mathematics classrooms have some particular things going on. First of all, they have instruction that focuses on mathematical sense-making, reasoning, and understanding by all students. Second, students are engaged in worthwhile mathematical tasks. And third, there's a deliberate culture of effort and growth that's established by the teacher and carried out by the students. The research about learning is telling us that when kids engage in cognitively demanding tasks, they learn more. They also need to have mathematical discourse that focuses on their reasoning. So that discourse needs to happen between students about their thinking. Next, they need to practice reflection and metacognition about their thinking and also the thinking of other people. And last, they need to experience productive disequilibrium. And what I mean by that is they need to experience that moment when someone says, does that always work? And they don't have the immediate answer. They have that, well, yeah, I can develop an argument for that. Or, no, maybe I can't. So with these things in mind, what we're trying to do is shift the responsibility of thinker from the teacher to the student. So our goal is to design instruction that helps our students develop generalizable mathematical ideas. That sounds really different than the way we talked about math 10 years ago or 15 years ago. When we talked about what we wanted to see kids do in math classrooms, we wanted to see them demonstrate a particular set of skills. This is different in that we're asking kids to build the ideas so that they have a transferable set of skills that they can apply to a variety of situations, not just one skill that they can apply to a particular problem that they've seen modeled for them in the classroom. So in this infographic, I want to try to make the connection for you between what the Common Core is asking us to do and the work that we're doing with best practices. As I'm sure you know, the Common Core state standards for mathematics are divided into two strands. The first strand is the standards for mathematical practice, and the second is the standards for mathematical content. This is different than some standards that we've worked with in the past, I think, because it's clearly outlining for us what kids should know, but in addition, it's describing how they should be able to think. And so this is where the best practices work comes in. By implementing the best practices work, what we're really doing is helping kids demonstrate these standards for mathematical practice. So if they can engage in the types of thinking and interaction that we're asking them to do, then they can access this knowledge and ultimately give us some evidence that they've learned. So the way that we're putting these changes into practice is we're asking kids every day, and this is happening all over our district, not just at CVU, which is another piece that makes this work super powerful. Because the language that I'm going to share with you is language that kids are seeing and using from the time they're little kids. John Madden was just talking to me about a video that he wants to share with me of third graders using some of the language that you're going to see on posters here today. So So we're really talking about a habit that follows two sets of habits that follow kids throughout their math education. So the habits are divided into two different categories. The first is habits of interaction. So in our day-to-day lessons, what we're asking kids to do is engage in these 8 habits of interaction. Now, when I say we're asking them to engage in those, what I mean is that these habits of interaction in some combination will be part of every lesson. It doesn't mean that kids will do all 8 of these things every single day in math class. So just to share with you what these are, the first one is private reasoning time. This is one of the first things that we ask kids to do when they're presented with a new task, is to read the task and engage with it privately without talking to anyone else. Without me introducing the task, read it and make sense of it and think about what questions you may have. Really kind of get to know it personally before any interaction around it happens. Then kids are asked to explain their reasoning to the class. So not just to me. So often we have document cameras in classrooms. Often kids bring their papers up and place them under the document cameras, so their work is on the projector for the entire class to see. And they are presenting a particular idea or thought or connection that they're making about the particular task at hand. The third one is listening to understand. That's pretty clear. One of the moves that we make here as teachers to make sure that there's understanding is we ask for kids to be able to revoice the ideas of others so that we're sure that that kid really did understand what was just said by their classmate. Then asking genuine questions, sounds pretty self-explanatory. Exploring multiple pathways. I feel like I spent a lot of years teaching math where this was a missed opportunity. I often made the choice to explore multiple pathways with kids when kids were stuck on the one that I had chosen to present. And so now, by shifting and by turning the table, what we're doing is we're recognizing this right up front. And this builds understanding for kids, because it helps them see the connections among their ideas. Comparing logic and ideas. So this is a place where kids are looking at each other's work and saying, how is our work the same and different? How does our reasoning help us arrive at the same place? Critiquing and debating. So we're trying to establish a culture where kids are really comfortable providing feedback to each other and debating a topic at hand or a statement at hand. And last, we're asking kids to stop considering us the authority and start considering math reasoning as the authority. So we're trying to step away from giving kids immediate feedback that they're right and asking them to determine that for themselves and to back up their thinking with mathematics and use the mathematics as the justification. So over here on the side, I included the math practice standards because if you read down through this list, the Common Core practice standards are make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. That's the kind of thing that we're asking kids to engage in a little bit with private reasoning time. Reason abstractly and quantitatively. This is the place where we're asking them to go to math reasoning as the authority. Construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. That's right here. It's right here. Model with mathematics. Modeling with mathematics gets at this multiple pathways piece. It also is the idea that helps us use mathematics to describe the world. Use appropriate tools strategically is another one. And then the last one is attend to precision. So the reason that I put these here is so that you could see the direct connection between these habits of interaction here and what the Common Core is asking kids to be able to do in terms of thinking. So I asked teachers to share with me some thoughts that they had about best practices and how their work was going. And here, this is what they shared, or this is a quote from a student and a teacher about the habits of interaction. I thought only to ask teachers, and then I had a couple teachers turn to students, which I thought was great because it turned out that they said things in a more powerful way than me. So this quote from a student says, "Personally, I think having a personal reasoning time helps a lot. Some students are introverts, while others are extroverts. Having a time where we can think quietly to ourselves benefits the introverts because they have time to do what they like to do. Reflect on what they've learned without other kids blurting stuff out. This also benefits extroverts as well because after private reasoning time, they have a moment to ask questions and share thoughts and ideas." So that's some pretty powerful stuff right there, because one of the biggest moves around private reasoning time is giving kids the opportunity to engage in the work individually. Because often, if we don't do this, what we're doing is we're letting the quickest, loudest person establish how the learning's going to happen. And then this is from a teacher who said, "Math used to be the class where kids would sit and listen with very little speaking, except for a few intrepid students. Other subjects seemed more action-oriented. Now in math, students expect to participate by talking, listening, sharing, reasoning, and from making sense to justifying to generalizing. They're mathematicians, not just calculators or observers." So now I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the habits of mind. This is the other set of habits that we're trying to develop in students. Ultimately, we want kids doing these three things all of the time. We want them making sense, justifying, and generalizing. So justifying, being able to describe why a relationship is the way it is, and then generalizing. What's the big generalizable rule that you can pull out of a particular situation? So there are 6 ways that we ask kids to do these 3 things. We ask them to look for regularity and structure. We ask them to make mathematical representations in different ways, make connections among mathematical ideas, practice metacognition and reflection, explore their mistakes and stuck points as ways to move forward rather than places to stop, and persevere and seek more. So if you take a look at this set of habits, you can see those reflected over here in the Common Core practice standards. So, and the research is clear in both of these areas that the development, when the teachers development group developed these habits of mind, and the Common Core developed these practice standards, that they were looking at the same body of research because they're even choosing some of the same language. So when asked about habits of mind, here are a couple of comments that came from a student and a teacher. The student said, "I guess you could say that doing the above things, bubble time," this particular kid is in a class where when the teacher asks them to go to private reasoning time, she says, "Okay, everybody go into your bubble." So this kid's calling it bubble time. So bubble time, reflection, and revoicing helps to reinforce the topics and helps to ensure a fuller understanding of the material, which ultimately makes us more confident mathematicians. And then the teacher, I think that this is a place where those of us who are going through this professional development, we've all had this realization as we've undergone this work this year. It says, "I've come to realize how much of the habits of mind I did for the students. I would do the generalizing or justifying, and I would make all the connections for them. There certainly was a certain amount of fleeting feelings of success for the students when they aced quizzes or tests. But as the level of questioning deepened, students were not always able to make sense of the problem on their own. For the students who have truly bought into the idea of reflection, I've seen success." So I think that this really captures the transition that we're trying to make. Because as math teachers, we've talked about watching this over and over again. As parents, I'm sure you've seen this in your kids over and over again, that they felt like they had it, and when the questions got tough, then they didn't have the skills they needed to navigate through. So what we're hoping is to avoid that and to put those challenging questions right up front so that kids no longer experience that feeling. So this has a huge impact on the way our lessons look. I said past and future here because as you look at our department, we're at all different places on the spectrum and of implementation of these practices. Some of us are just barely experimenting and others of us are doing this on a daily basis. So in the past, we focused our lessons on a topic. The ideas and the examples were explained by the teacher, and the lesson was finished when I was done talking about it. And now, what we're doing is we're focusing the lesson on a core math idea that's generalizable. So an idea that we want kids to be able to walk away, hold on to, and apply to many different situations. Then, student ideas and examples are explained by the students. And the way this happens is we put the task in the hands of kids, and then the teacher researches the thinking in the room. And we have an idea in our mind of a sequence of ideas and connections that we'd like to see made with the task. And we ask students to present those ideas in that particular sequence to build the understanding. So we monitor that learning and set up that sequence. Then the lesson's done when the students have reached the generalization, which is really different from before. Because often when I was doing this, there wasn't a lot of monitoring student learning throughout the lesson. Okay? So the big effect that this is having on student learning is that they're developing these habits of thinking and interacting so that they can solve problems. Because what the research says is where kids fall short is in problem solving. If we give kids problems that they've seen before, they can crank them out and toss them back to us, and we can play that game of tennis. But when we give them a problem that they haven't seen before, they're stuck. And so this is what we're trying to address. So here's how this professional development looks for us as a school. We're currently engaged in a 3-year program that features a different studio teacher each year. So we just finished our 4th cycle of studio today, and that means that this year's teacher is done with being a studio teacher, and next year a different teacher will volunteer to do that. I'll explain a little bit what being the studio teacher means in just a sec. So throughout each year, the mathematics studio occurs 4 times in the classroom of the studio teacher. So that means that today, the entire math department and Dan Shepardson walked into Ben F's science class to watch him teach math. And this is by far the most powerful professional development I have ever experienced. Because standing next to Ben is Bill Feely, the guy from the Teachers Development Group, who's coaching us through this process. And so as we spend a lot of time yesterday planning what today is going to look like, and then Bill stands next to Ben as he teaches and coaches his moves. And we get to watch as flies on the wall. And so we watch Bill help Ben put the habits of interaction and the habits of mind into action with his kids in the classroom. So that's this piece right here, where we're experiencing the math habits of mind and habits of interaction in the classroom. We also experience them as students. The man that is teaching us how to implement these strategies lives this protocol. He holds us to the same habits of mind and habits of interaction that he expects us to use in our classrooms. And the last piece is that school leaders provide us with feedback that's aligned to research during the studio, but also between studio cycles. So Dan Shepardson and I are in and out of classrooms between studio cycles doing what's called data snaps, where we go into classrooms and look for evidence of the work. And then we give teachers feedback based on what we see. So the last thing I have for you here is a picture of what a typical studio day looks like. So this is really active and engaging professional development. This isn't like classes that I've taken before where something happens at the front of a room for several hours and I go away after it's done. The first thing that happens is we hear an opening from leadership. And the opening can have a different focus depending on what we're trying to do that day. Sometimes it celebrates some things that have been seen in the work. Sometimes it establishes an urgency for a particular piece of this work. Sometimes it clarifies what we're trying to accomplish. After that, we engage in the mathematics that related to the lesson that we're going to go observe. So we actually do and live the math so that we can think about it in the same way that a student is. Then we analyze and refine the lesson plan, and we think about ways that we can work those habits of interaction and habits of mind into that lesson so that we can build understanding of those habits for kids. Then we observe the enactment of the lesson in real time with real kids. Next, we debrief it in order to generalize to our practice. Meaning, what have we learned? What can we take away from this? What things can we put into practice in our own teaching? And lastly, we reflect on the work and establish the next steps for ourselves. So this is what we just did today. It's a long, exhausting day of work, and I feel like we all get to the end of it, and we're chatting about these ideas, and we're excited and energized about it. So one of the things that I thought was great this morning is Bill said, "What else do you guys need from me?" And one of the people sitting next to me said, "I need to Skype you every morning." Because of the energy that people are feeling with this program. People are excited to be there and excited to put these things into practice. Okay, so that's what I have for you. Now you can fire away with some questions.
This is just amazing and awesome. I have been so frustrated teaching science or math. The kids can do the problems. They have no idea why they're doing what they're doing, and you really seem to be tackling that, which is just great. And I'm going in Friday teaching 8th grade math, so I'm psyched now.
Well, you should see the evidence of the work out there in the sending schools.
Yep. Also, what the heck is metacognition?
Thinking about thinking. So when we're asking students to think about how they're approaching the task, in what way are you thinking about this right now? Are you trying to make representation? Are you trying to represent it with symbols? Can you be reflective about that process? Is that enough of an answer for you?
Yes, that's fine. That's exactly. And maybe everybody else knows about the teacher development group, but I haven't. This is new to me.
The teacher development group is the group that employs the people who do this work with us. So there's a guy named Bill who comes here and does this work with us, and he's paid by the teachers development group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're teaching halftime.
Yes.
And you're working on this halftime. So what typically this halftime? What do you end up doing? I mean, obviously you do some of these studio. I assume Ben Epstein was the studio teacher.
Yes, he was the studio teacher this year. Well, this is one of 3 things that I feel like are my projects with the math department right now. So relative to best practices work, I help people think about how they might design lessons differently, think about how they might ask questions differently. I look for resources and try to put them in one place where people can access them, things like that. So sometimes people have a specific question, like, is there a task like this that I can use for logarithms? And it's my job to try to go and find that resource for people. The other 2 pieces are alignment with the Common Core standards and standards-based learning. And all of these blend nicely together, but that's how I spend my time on those 3 initiatives.
Now, is there a program that you work with this? I mean, a set of textbooks or something that?
We have not purchased any programs. We've stayed with our traditional textbooks that we've been using for the past, I don't know, 7 or 8 years?
Yeah.
Probably. Because what we found, I think, as we're diving into this work and the work with Common Core is that I'm not sure that the resource is what's so important, but it's more the instruction and really being thoughtful about what we're asking kids to do. So we feel like at this point, we have the resources to support that, I think.
Cool.
Do we have other questions? Well, Monica, I'm delighted to find out how my daughter learned to justify almost anything. And apparently it was out of your math class. Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. This gives us on the board faith that our school is moving in the right direction. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And
Thanks, Monica.
I know, that just occurred to me. I didn't reference any of the stuff that the kids do. So we call these public records of student thinking. There was a lot of student thinking going on down here when this kid was driving an airplane. Thinking about aviation maybe. But basically what we're trying to do here is capture student thinking. And if you glance at this, it looks a little different than the math that we did when we were in school. Because what we're asking kids to do is really make connections between some different representations and be able to justify why different ideas work. Yeah?
When I was teaching math today, we had the exact same problem on the doors that we've got posted up there. So
Oh, yeah.
we're going to review it Friday.
we're going to move on to item 5. Item 5.1, Student Council Report. I'm going to turn it over to Lisa, who's going to fill us in on all of the wonderful stuff that happened, including the score of the basketball game when I saw her sneaking in there before the meeting.
Yes, so unfortunately Alex will not be able to join us. He's at a hockey game tonight against Essex, so good luck to him. But yes, the basketball game was 41-7 by the time I left.
And we can get a final report.
56-14.
Well, so on topic of women's basketball, they had an undefeated season again. That's 2 seasons in a row, and quarterfinals are on Saturday, so that's really exciting for them. Boys basketball, however, haven't had the same good fortune as them. They've won 7 games and lost 12. Pretty rough. Nordic skiing, the state championships for skate racing is tomorrow morning at Rickards, which is in Middlebury, and then on Tuesday is the classic race, and so I'm really looking forward to that, and that'll be really exciting. Wrestling, they made history and took home the first championship, the NVAC, so Northern Vermont Athletic Conference championship at Virgins. That's really awesome. Boys hockey, they've won all of their games except one. And gymnastics has also had a really good season. And then girls hockey, now the Rebel Hawks combined with South Burlington, they've had a pretty good season, better than the previous years. So good luck to them the rest of their season. So I know Alex has talked a lot about the penguin plunge during the fall, and that occurred in the beginning of February. A lot of students and faculty participated, 120 people, and they raised over $45,000. And so that is amazing and probably a record for CVU. Yeah.
When is the haircut day for the four teachers?
Friday.
Yes.
And so,
and do you know what time it is, in case any of us want to?
2.
1:50 or 2. Right around 2 o'clock. Right
Okay.
around 2 o'clock.
So if anyone wants to see 4 of the CVU teachers have their heads shaved, it's about 2 o'clock. And I understand one of them is going for a mohawk, so this may be something we want to do. I'm sorry to interrupt, Lisa.
And that leads into Winter Carnival, which is rolled around once again. This Friday we'll have a half day, and then in the afternoon it'll be Winter Carnival. So that'll include the trike race and the class dances, and the class dances will be judged by 3 of our faculty members in an American Idol-esque judging competition. And so all this week has been School Spirit Week, and there's been a lot of different clothing themes. So today was Vermonter, which is all my flannel. And I have to say I've never seen so many people wearing flannel in one place. It was crazy. I was like, we should take a picture because it was pretty impressive. And so next week is February break, and there are 2 trips. One is the band is going to Costa Rica, so they've been fundraising for that for a pretty long time, and the Spanish class 4 and 5 are going to the Dominican Republic. And so that's about all that's happened.
Do we-
Yeah, that's quite a bit. It's been a long time since we've had a meeting.
I do want to add that I think Tuesday was Tropical Theme Day?
Yes.
Yes.
So
and-
Tuesday was tropical.
And I had the pleasure of coming to a meeting here at 8 a.m. in the morning, and I saw our interim principal in shorts and a Hawaiian shirt. It was lovely.
Nervous there, what are you gonna say?
Yeah. Do we have any other comments or questions for Lisa, perhaps on a more serious note? Then we'll turn to our principal for the principal's report.
One of my biggest decisions I had to make today was whether to show up to the meeting dressed as I was in school today as a Vermonter. But since you were deciding my fate tonight, I thought probably not a good idea. But I did have a lot of flannel. I'll be brief with this. One of the things that David asked that I address was the public safety issue since the time of Sandy Hook. And so I asked Kevin Reel and Carol Fox, who are on the safety committee, to put together a brief summary of some of the things that have been done since that time. And they've done a nice job of kind of highlighting some of those initiatives, and they include painting all the doors and windows in the classes. We do clear the hall drills, and yet in most classrooms, you could walk down the hall and still look in and still see the students and teachers. And now that is no longer the case in most rooms. Also, the door lock in that entrance out there is now just a key pass, and the only people who have those keys are faculty members. And there has been discussion about cameras, particularly down by the bus barn, where there has been some vandalism in the past. But they've done a nice job of capturing some of the things that we have been looking at.
Jeff, is there a community safety committee which involves the Heinsberg Police
Yes.
and
Yeah.
the local rescue squad?
Yeah, the safety committee involves 3 or 4 members from our building, administration, staff, and faculty, and then also fire and rescue and some police from Heinsberg. And in fact, tomorrow, Lisa, don't tell anybody, we'll be having a clear the halls drill where the police will be here observing and taking notes on our drill. And Karina, don't tell anybody, and Monica, don't tell.
I have a question about
Sure.
that. I've had some discussions with some other people, but will there ever be a drill during like lunch or between bells or in the morning?
We try to schedule them not during the lunch hours because of the chaos that it could promote, but they have had that discussion about maybe we do need to pick times where there is less structure and where there are more kids that were in different places in the building. So that is part of the discussion. Right now, I think because of the orderly nature of doing it during a class, we've stuck to that.
Is that what you were thinking, Lisa, was that maybe during one of those less structured times would be more difficult to figure out and
Yes.
practice?
I've had a tornado drill, like a real one, not drill, during lunch, and it was just crazy.
Yeah.
So I was just like,
Yeah, I think it's a fair point, but it's also one of those things that you have a half hour for lunch and we're going to take 10 or 15 minutes for a drill, and then people aren't going to have their lunch in time, and then they're going to show up to class late. So there are implications that we've considered. Yeah.
Possibly talking about what would happen when you're in the cafeteria,
Mhm.
where your exits are and whatever.
Right. Yeah, we do,
Involves.
and actually during every drill, there are students in the cafeteria. It may not be lunch block, but there are students in there, and we make sure that that's always staffed, and the staff knows exactly where the exits are, and, or if it's a clear the halls drill, where you're supposed to gather inside the room.
Jeff, there was some pushback from the community, a couple years ago, and, talking about armed guards and all that kind of stuff, and, I know we didn't go there, but is that still happening? Are there still some parents calling up? Because there was a few parents that showed up.
One,
Just showed up a few times.
and, and it was right after the event, right?
Right.
And that's,
Is it our budget?
Yeah.
To put
yeah.
money in
Yeah.
for.
And, or if not armed guards, they wanted security cameras all over the place, and,
In the time that I've been in this role, I have not had anybody raise that as an issue.
and I'm sure it will come again once another tragedy happens.
Yes.
One of the things I learned during this period of time, because I got bombarded by emails from concerned parents, and fortunately, one of our parents is a consultant in safety in academic institutions. And he was helping out. And what I learned and what we have here is that one of the most critical aspects of safety within the school is knowing your students.
Relationships,
And of course, one of our goals is that each of our students establishes a strong relationship with at least one adult, and preferably more, at CVU. And that approach does as much, according to this consultant, does as much, if not more, for safety in a school than some of the other things that people were suggesting. And there was actually an example of that last year when a student heard another child speaking about something that was unsafe and reported it. And that's the kind of safety we have here, which I think is pretty critical. That doesn't mean that our committee can stop working, and I'm hoping that we'll continue to look at this at least annually to make sure that we are on top of the situation.
And a lot of our discussions within that committee have been around that phase 2 evacuation drill that we did earlier in the year, and how to implement that if it were for real, and make alterations to it.
What's phase 2?
To actually evacuate the area. So we
They
had
did
the
it
school
once.
buses lined up there, they all got on the buses.
Get them off campus.
Right. And how to do that efficiently to get them to their hometowns or to get them to their homes, to have central locations where parents can pick up kids. Yeah.
Phase 1 is,
Phase 1 is to just evacuate the building or to clear the halls, depending on which phase it is. But then, once you realize that you want everybody off the premises, that's phase 2. And that's what I just wanted to highlight in that. The rest of it is pretty self-explanatory. Sure.
Do we have questions for Jeff on the safety or any of the other issues that he addressed?
I just have a
in his
quick
report?
question.
Yes.
Jeff. You mentioned here about the bus barn experiencing thefts. What about thefts in the school? Is that a problem?
Do you mean outside of school hours, or do you mean during school?
During school hours or any time the school? just-
Any theft is a problem, and yes, we have experienced some thefts, and we've experienced a little rash of them recently, but it has, compared to other years, at least has not been as prevalent. But it's a very big building, we don't have eyes everywhere, and right now, one of the things that we're trying to address is what do we do when kids are taking wellness classes and all their stuff is in the locker rooms and unattended and that kind of thing. That's where the most recent thefts have taken place. And so we're trying
And
to
is
address
that what this committee's addressing that?
that.
as well, or is that
Not so
taking-
much, that's more admin. That's
Okay.
more admin dealing with that, yeah.
If we're set with the principal's report, we'll move on to the second quarter management report. A couple of the members of the Financial Committee are not with us this evening. One is sick ostensibly.
No.
One is sick.
No, Jean is sick.
Jean has an unexcused absence for feeling ill, and I'm not sure Jonathan's is excused either, taking his daughter to auditions for her college applications. Do we have another member of the?
Were you there too, right?
Right. Yeah, does someone want to tell us about the financial management report and what we need to know?
No.
So, what he put together, what Bob put together, the 2 pages is pretty much what we talked about and trying to understand it. Things look good. Good.
Oh,
Jean actually sent me an email when she begged off from the meeting that says that we're at about the same place we were last quarter, and that our assumption on using $154,000 for tax relief in our budget is still remains very, very comfortable.
I do have a comment. I'd like to direct a question to Megan.
Yep.
And I know that the special ed is, sort of has to be what it is, but we're 300,000 over. We're gonna be 300,000 over budget, I believe. Is that possible to break that down exactly how that works out, or why, or what's happened, or?
So the bulk of your overage this year, and so I'm speaking a little bit for Anna, building-based director, but is related to outplaced costs, which are significant and unexpected and generally related to kids moving into the district. And the other thing to remember is that those costly outplacements are reimbursed at a far higher rate. So any cost above 50,000 is reimbursed at a 90% rate instead of the typical 50. So your revenue will go up. It's not going to offset the entire 300,000, but there will be some revenue that does come back. So Anna's done a really, really good job of looking as much as we can about our continuum, but being the size of our high school and the fact that we have some placements in our communities for kids are often placed in our communities.
Oh, by the state?
Right,
yes.
and so the impact is often that.
With the typical outplacement costs, I mean, some of these are 24, I mean, are they typically 24-hour, 24/7 outplacements, or is it just a 8-hour out?
They're more likely to be day treatment places. We do have some students who are in residential placements. Those are the significantly costly placements. But the majority is day placement.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Joan?
Megan, with what Monica was addressing with the, direction we're trying to get our education, Jeff, as well. I think, is it fair to say we're reaching more learners that would be on a more expensive spectrum of delivery, but we're reaching students differently? I'm not phrasing it clearly, but
Yeah, I think I know it. No, I think you are phrasing it well. And I think in general, what we know now about instruction will reach many, many more learners than we currently reach, and engage more learners and give kids access to curriculum that they haven't had before. I think that's absolutely true. I don't know that that will affect some of, when we think of our continuum, the kids on the very far end of the continuum, potentially not. But I think it'll really revolutionize kids' access to education. So,
I have a question. Are we seeing the effects of this being in place in the, lower house, or not lower houses, but in the, K through 8? Are we already seeing that the kids are coming here better prepared?
What hasn't been happening?
I think,
Or are we not there yet?
I think we've got a few more years before, and I think you can answer that better than I can. We are, even though the K-8s are several years ahead of CVU in the progression. There's still this, I think I'm trying to think which students, I think it's our fourth grade students our fourth graders right now are the ones that will have had this kind of instruction all the way through.
Oh, okay.
So I think it'll be a few more years, but it's certainly, they're seeing differences at the K-8 level in terms of access and things like that, so.
So are we hoping that by the time these fourth graders get here, that some of this stuff I don't wanna say will have to be reintroduced, but it's already been implemented and they just,
Absolutely.
okay.
If we can move on to the CSSU debrief, I'd be happy to do it, but I didn't make the meeting tonight, so I'm gonna pass. Although if no one's willing to do it, I could make some stuff up. But Lorna was there.
I barely know you. Yeah, I did.
Lorna and Joan, were you there? Yes.
Yeah.
Lorna and Joan, if you could just give us a brief overview.
Okay, we first heard from Mark Wardman about the insurance coverages for CSSU and all the schools and property. And I think it was something like about $540,000 that we invest in insuring liability insurance and comprehensive insurance and everything. But he has to come once a year and present it to us according to policy.
And if you read the Colt report, what they call the declarations page, the description of coverage was all out there.
Yeah, there are many different policies.
Yep.
It's pretty complicated. There was some conversation about Act 153, 156, and moving special ed. Megan, it's good to have you here. Onto CSSU and how that's going to impact us. And I think that's reason for us to think about. We're going to be talking about it next month in detail, and then probably follow up in the retreat and try to figure out what approach, I guess, makes the most sense for us. I asked the pointed question, is this good for kids? Because I didn't know whether I should be angry about this or not. But I realized that we didn't have any choice when that happens. I think it's a reasonable question. Should we protest and whatever, or just try to make the best of it so it works for our kids' advantage? What else? Actually, the best part was, first thing in the meeting was Jones talking about a major recognition of Elaine Pickney and her award. You can summarize that better than I can.
Elaine was recognized by her peers and given the Frederick H. Tuttle Superintendent of the Year Award for 2013. We know that because we got changed from last Wednesday. But the state reps and senators from our school district, I had sign on to a resolution. I'm not going to read it. And I was actually reprimanded a little by Molly because it was said I was using run-on sentences. Because there's a lot of whereases in resolutions. But it's just a neat thing, and I'm having the real copy with the embossing framed on behalf of all the boards for her. But criteria for outstanding education leadership in local, regional, and state levels, and a commitment to public education and children. It inspires others to lead and always works with the best interests of students as her primary concern. She began her career as an elementary and middle school teacher, principal, Vermont Deputy Commissioner of Education when it was a department then. She's shown her deep commitment to the students in her supervisory unions, communities, and to raising the quality of elementary and secondary education in Vermont. She has co-chaired a work group focusing on educational quality, has been a prime advocate for adopting a modern school calendar that promotes a better learning process. There were chuckles there then too. And she was recognized by her colleagues for her leadership skills and selecting her as the VSA vice president and the Vermont representative to the governing board of the American Association of School Administrators. So, I mean, it's like in your own family, you forget how recognized she is throughout the state and nationally. And so I was pleased to be able to do this, and maybe she'll show us, but we'll take care of that. I think she liked it.
And one other thing, the common topic I thought today was excellent.
Yeah, it was really good.
In having Jackie and Greg, two principals in the system, talk about supervision and evaluation of teachers and the whole model and how it works and what they do. And, you know, it just felt very positive and very organized. And they're going to do this, and this is what they're going to do, but they're going to have dialogues with teachers that are suggesting ideas and things, and, you know, it just felt like they were collaborating on how to make instruction work best for kids rather than be a punitive system, which I think in some places it is very much that way.
Yeah, that was specifically talking about using walkabouts as a way to interact with teachers much more frequently in the course of a year rather than, because right now our supervision system is being supervised once every 4 years once you're a teacher, and there's a long period of time if that's literally the only time you're supervised. And so this is much more of a proactive, ongoing sort of way of looking at teacher performance, and not in a punitive way, but in a formative way, and a way to share ideas hopefully across teachers eventually, but definitely get the principals more familiar with what's going on in the classrooms on a regular basis. And they're really short, like 7 to 15-minute visits in a classroom, unannounced, taking notes, listening to what kids are saying about what they're learning and how the teacher's interacting with the kids and stuff. I thought it was a very good presentation. They did it very well, and it's a good piece of supervision, I think.
And each of them use different apps, props to get feedback back to faculty.
Yeah, that's good.
Great.
Well, thank you. The next item on the agenda is 5.5 committee reports. I think we've heard from the Finance Committee, unless there is anything more you need to tell us. And my guess is that we don't have any particular reports from any of the other committees, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, you know, the negotiation committee talked in the other room, and I think to the extent that if you could come and go to that executive session before this meeting, that's probably a good thing to do. I'm not going to do that now, but things are slow moving.
Those meetings are very useful and worth the extra, getting here an extra 15 minutes early to find out what's going on and keep abreast of the developments. If there's nothing more on committees, let's move to discussion matters. And 6.1 is budget informational meeting preparation. And what I'd like us to talk about first are town meetings. Williston is, we're going to have covered. Polly, Jean, Jonathan, and I will be there. I'm really hoping they let me get up on stage and talk again, because the budget passed so easily last year, and I'm sure it was because of my comments. But I'm hoping that each of the other towns have something set up that they've either done or is in the planning, and I see shaking from the heads from Shelburne.
Well, Shelburne has a public hearing at the end of January, combination of the schools and the select board,
Yeah.
and puts forth both budgets at that time. And so it's sort of the dry run of the town meeting.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same process
Yeah.
again. Those who come to town meeting don't usually attend the public hearing and vice versa.
Yeah.
So we've got a PowerPoint where we dovetail onto the community
Yeah.
school. And I think we're in pretty good shape.
And you'll be doing that town
Apparently,
meeting.
Yes, it will be my
That
swan
was in
song.
January, this is February.
Don't say
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Orientation.
We're gonna get teary-eyed if you say that.
Oh,
Is Charlotte setting something up?
The Monday before town meeting,
Yeah,
first we have our annual meeting here,
Yeah.
and then usually we go over to Charlotte, and we have a joint presentation with Charlotte Central,
Yeah.
and the same slide presentation
yeah.
that Bob put together probably for Shelburne we have.
Yeah, each of the towns should have one. I know that Williston's has, I've seen at least the draft. And is Heinsberg set? You guys are changing this year, aren't
We're
you?
changing this year, so now our situation is similar to yours on the Monday night before voting day. And I'm away, and Ray is, the Heinsberg Community School Board asked a representative from our board to be at that meeting, and so Ray's graciously agreed to do that since I'm away.
I just thought, usually at those meetings, I bring a bunch
I'll
of
be in
meetings.
Tucson.
I have I have ordered a smaller bunch this year because I am aware of how many get left on the tables.
Yes, we don't need a whole lot.
So we've got about 50 for each town. They'll be inserted into all of the local papers. I take that back. It will not be in the Citizen. It'll be in Heinsberg, the Charlotte News, the Shelburne News, and the Williston Observer. All should be appearing next week, with the exception of the Charlotte News, which is a bi-weekly, and so theirs will be just a few days before town meeting.
So you should bring a bunch.
So, we'll I'll divvy these up, and we'll each take a stack, and have them for our town meeting night before. There's usually a table.
Do you want to grab those for Williston Pub? That would be great.
You got 'em.
That really limits the chance that I'll lose them between now and then. This was a wonderful segue into the flyer, and which was the next on my list, and congratulations again.
Beautiful.
The flyer, these flyers come out so nicely,
Well,
and
I work with a graphic designer who's a Heinsberg resident, former CVU parent, with whom I worked for many years professionally, and so we get it. And I just want to say that I didn't write a word of this. Jean and Lorna did all the writing. I just sort of pulled the strings and put them in the right places.
And you do understand that although we're being nice to you and letting you leave the board, you do not get to leave this position of flyer coordinator.
Well, I do.
There's no exit.
No exit.
I actually have it a lot better organized than it was when I took it on, and so I'll pass that on to the communications committee and also Lorna and Jean, so there'll be lots of keepers of the information, and of course, I'm not disappearing,
Yeah,
so.
like some people.
Right.
Which moves us on to the survey, and Jean, if I can get the right spot, Jean emailed us out.
An electronic version of it.
Yeah, and she was looking for a question to.
Oh, to fill into that place that
Yes.
had some previously.
The safety one?
Had the safety question in it before,
and
yeah.
she was looking for an additional question. I was hoping someone had come up with a great idea between receiving this, and Polly has done.
Well, in one of her, she talks about the kneecaps and SATs and, this whole Common Core is coming into play. And I do know that at least the Observer had a article about the Common Core, I think within the last month. Am I right on that, David? I'm pretty sure.
Yes,
Remember
I think so.
And I've just, are people aware that these standards are now changing again? And, maybe she wants to add a thing about the Common Core in there.
Well, Are we writing about that in the?
You know, I don't want to open up a whole can of worms, but, and we didn't talk at all about any of the discussion in the principal search committee, but I'm very frustrated at this point because we've got articles that are appearing monthly. 3 of them have been about Common Core. They've appeared not in Williston
But in all the other
consistently, but
papers.
they've been in
Yeah.
all the other papers. There's been, you know, an attempt to discuss and have the community be aware of this, and people aren't. And there's a point at which I don't know how much more we can do.
Okay.
Right.
And you know, I mean, look at our big audience at all our meetings. Clearly, people are really interested in this stuff.
Do we have to put something in there?
No,
Well, I just, you know, because our town hasn't been doing this,
Right.
but that's okay, we don't have
But I
to.
think that's where our responsibility to talk to our local papers.
We have.
Oh, yes.
No.
So hard,
right
so
from
tried.
there.
We went last year with Jean, the 3 of us, too.
Yeah.
And they have a very strong, clearly defined editorial policy,
Yeah, yeah.
which is that they generate their own editorial, period, the end. And
They-
But I
they
think
don't
it's okay to
understand
put a question in our survey, because it's just another opportunity to raise
well,
awareness.
and it was the question from last year's survey that got us the meeting, because they were not
They
happy
were
with
not,
us.
right, true.
I would put a question in about it, even if it,
Common
they
Core.
haven't
Are you
heard.
being
it
aware of
helps
it?
Bring
So
out,
we'll,
bring it up to the public eye. It makes
right,
it,
exactly.
you know.
What are we trying to find out by asking?
Are they aware of the Common Core?
I understand the question, why do we want to know? Like, what is it
will
going to give
some
us?
information about whether or not people are reading these articles that are at least being put into some of the local
Well,
papers.
it can, and it can, it could help the communications committee in how they focus the articles for next year. It may be just rerunning some of the stuff.
That makes nice.
Really interesting for next
The
year.
Common Core also ties into, you know, CVU Evolve and,
Yes.
you know, it's all,
Yeah. So what, I'll send an email to Jean suggesting that she put that in. We're gonna have to coordinate by, I guess, coordinate somehow getting these to the polls and picking them up afterwards. And if we could get volunteers.
So I just have a question.
Yeah.
Is it at the polls or is it at, I mean, I don't know how the
Town
other towns.
hall is where we, right?
Well, our town meeting takes place the night before
Yes.
the voting. And
Yes.
so do we want them at town meeting or
Both.
at the polls?
both.
Both. In Williston, there's a table outside of the auditorium for the town meeting. I assume it's somewhat similar in the other
Yes.
towns, and we just put some out there and put a box to put completed ones in, pick them up, and then we do the same thing at the polls the next day. And so if we could get volunteers from each town who are actually going to be here to help Jean drop them off, to make sure they get placed at the meeting. Ray, since you're going to do the presentation, perhaps you could coordinate
And go there, so.
with Jean to get the surveys out there and then pick them up at the end of voting day.
Picking them up.
And if we could have, Polly, Jean, and Jonathan, I can figure that out. If you folks in Charlotte can sort that out and the Shelburne
Yeah,
folks
we're-
sort that out, just
We're
make
on
sure
it.
Jean knows what's going on.
Right.
And
Do we have volunteers?
I've done it for years. This is your chance.
Do we have volunteers to tabulate the results? David?
Go ahead.
David?
Pardon?
Do we have volunteers to tabulate the results?
Funny you should mention it. I'll be off the board.
It would be lovely if someone from each town would do a tabulation. I'm going to suggest to Jean, because last year poor Jean did them all, I think.
No,
Yeah,
I
but
did.
No, Susan did. I knew it was someone.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have that.
Yeah.
At least one other person.
We didn't do it by town.
It would be great if someone from each town did it, and it would be great if there was a matrix on how to tabulate it, so that everyone's results came in more or less the same way. So perhaps.
I mean, if you could fill in the numbers into the
Yes,
same
yes.
sort of spreadsheet or
So
whatever.
perhaps if, from your experience last year, you can put that together. That would be wonderful. The final thing is I hope people in each town are faithfully looking at Front Porch Forum every time it comes out. I sent out to the communications committee a short piece that I put together on the budget, which Jean caught a couple of errors and straightened them out.
One error.
Yeah, and it was, and I want to say it was Bob Mason's error. I just copied his error correctly.
It always is.
If it's all right with the communications committee, if this is an acceptable piece, what I'd like to do is send this out to everybody on the board so that there's something that you can send into that the communications committee has okayed, that you could send into Front Porch Forum if we start.
Should you want to?
Yes, should you
See,
want
I don't
to.
think you want to do anything.
Yes. No, we're not, this is,
No,
we're
in
not.
Charlotte, it's not a good idea.
We're not gonna be I'm not suggesting
not
that we send
initiating
this in
anything.
first. I'm suggesting only if we start
needed.
getting misinformation,
Okay.
that this is available to go in.
Okay.
that
okay,
sounds
I
good.
think that's
Or to
fine.
pick and choose pieces,
Yes,
right? I mean,
yes, pick-
we're not gonna put the whole thing
Yes.
in necessarily, but
Yes.
to sort of prevent what happened
Yep.
with the fields.
Yes, exactly. This is, by no stretch of the imagination are we putting this out proactively. It's only in response if it comes up in the Front Porch Forum. So if everyone can keep monitoring that, I'll get that emailed out tomorrow so that we'll have it available. And that's what I have for preparing for the budget and the budget informational meetings. I suppose the final thing is that a week from Monday, we all get to come here at, and, is it 5:30?
Yeah, make sure Tony Lamb shows up at the right time.
At 5:30 to, if it's anything like prior years, we'll have a massive audience. And
It's at 5:30?
yes, 5:30.
It's in
And-
the,
And Elaine, if, yes, and
is that late for you? Is that
And
what you're
actually-
saying? Yeah, that's what.
last year Tony thought it was 6, so.
That's why I'm
yes,
And Joan's
really-
saying it should be 5.
John's saying it should be earlier.
Because we've gotta get to show them
It's usually been
I thought
5
we did
o'clock.
this at 5.
thing. I think it's a,
Yeah.
I have 5 o'clock written down.
Okay, everyone take their agenda, and
I'm pretty sure it says
in
5 o'clock.
item-
It says 5 o'clock in the flyer.
Right here.
it says 5 o'clock in the flyer. Take your
Then
agenda.
it must be 5
It's
o'clock.
usually been 5
It's in
o'clock.
print.
Oh, no, it's not. I'm
This
sorry.
is something different. It's not in our,
It's not
it's
in
not
the
in our
agenda. So
agenda.
it's 5 o'clock. I was
No.
misreading something.
What's the day?
It is Monday, March 3rd, 5 PM, here at CVU, and I presume in this room.
Well, no,
Or is it-
142.
142.
It's easier for them.
Yeah.
When is town meeting day?
Town
This is
meeting,
the Monday night.
Tuesday,
Yeah.
March 3rd.
Heinsberg's gonna have their
They're gonna have it later.
That's why we meet at 5.
but I think the agenda I saw was that I'm supposed to do my presentation at 5 o'clock on Monday.
if,
I don't think so.
Verify that, right? It doesn't.
yeah, it typically is later. They typically start at 7, but I don't know
Town
what.
meeting starts at 7.
Yes, but sort that out, and if you have to miss our annual meeting, we'll assign someone to take notes and to brief you on it afterwards. But if you would, just make sure the timing gets straightened out on that. And
Keep going, we're 10 minutes behind.
Yeah, and I just got hit by my co-chair.
I did not
Because-
hit you.
because
Sanctioned. Sanctioned.
I think she thinks I'm talking too much. I can't imagine it. The next item is 6.2, which I added, board development. As you all know, I cannot run for chair again next year, and when I sent out that email, the response was not even underwhelming in terms of people who are jumping forward to fill this position. But after several conversations, Susan Grasso has indicated that she would like to take my place and perhaps keep the meeting shorter with less talk. So that does not foreclose anyone else from running for chair.
Well, can't we nominate Jonathan?
Not till next month. He's not here, right?
We can't do that until the reorganization meeting and if he doesn't show up then. Leah has also indicated, and again, subject to anyone else expressing interest, that she would continue as vice chair, which, and thank you very much, because Leah's been very helpful.
If I win, I'm running. Maybe I won't win.
Yeah. We need to think about committee assignments. There will be some changes with some changes on the board. So you need to think about what committees you'd like to sit on, and there's finance and facility and communications. There going to be the potential of some changes in the communications committee because of movement of our two Susans. So I would encourage people who are interested in that to perhaps talk to Leah before March to see what's involved and what you can do to help. And we have some appointments to CSSU positions, but they typically tend to be the same from year to year unless people express differences. We have policy committee. Lorna is negotiations committee, and I'm pretty sure that we want to continue our negotiator in the midst of negotiations. We have a local standards board, which Marilyn has been handling for us admirably for a while. We have administrative pay scale review committee, but I think that's, you may be done. But we'll get that full list out for March. Just think about where you can pitch in and help as we make this transition. The final thing is that we're going to be electing 4 CSSU representatives, and I have been one in the past, and I will not be one in the future. I can't imagine anyone's going to nominate me, but if nominated, I'm going to decline. So we're going to need CSSU reps. I always think it's very important that our chair.
It's a good policy. I think it's.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I would.
Yeah. So that may be the spot, but if you're thinking about that, then the reorganization is going to be in March. That's it for board development, unless there's anyone else can think of anything that we need to address. That moves us on to action matters.
David, are you going to be with us in March?
Yes.
In the March
Yes,
meeting?
I should explain. I actually filed my petition well before I realized that there was even a possibility that our family was going to move halfway around the world. And once your petition is filed, you can't withdraw it. As a matter of fact, if you die, you can't withdraw your name. So I am, since there's no opposition, I assume that I'm going to be elected. And my plan is to stay until June, until our summer break. That plan is subject to what the desires of the Williston School Board may have. If I remember the process correctly, they will make the choice of who is the replacement from Williston. used to be the select board. It's the school board. It is, it changed, and I think it's the school board. So my plan is to email them and the Williston representatives so that we can find someone who, we can find a good replacement. And if that person wants to get on early, then I would step aside. But I'm hoping to stay until the end of June and enjoy your company at least that long.
Can I just say one thing on the topic of board development?
Yes.
I would just like to say it's been a pleasure being part of this board. I'm always amazed at how we somehow come out on the same page when we don't necessarily start there. And I think that's testimony to everybody being as open-minded as you are. So I have personal reasons for not running again. Most of you know I've had some health issues I've been battling with this year, and I'm just going to take a little time and take care of myself for a while. But
We're gonna miss you.
We are
Thank
gonna
you.
miss
Thank you very much.
You're coming to the annual meeting, aren't you?
Yeah.
On Monday?
Yeah.
Good. I'll say goodbye then.
Okay. Well, I'm not saying goodbye, I'm just saying thank you.
I'll say goodbye and thank you
I would
then.
say to Susan's point, I very often hold this board up as an example of a board that comes from 4 different towns. And never once, and I say this, I've said this so many times, never once have I ever heard anybody say, well, what's that gonna do for the Williston kids? Or what will that be for the Heinsberg or Shelburne or Charlotte kids? That you always operate on this level. And I think that that is the piece that you're talking about. Like, people come with the best interest of kids at heart, might come with like ideas about personal things, but when it all gets discussed, people are very open to thinking about like what's right for kids. And I think it's great that you brought that up.
Thanks.
Because I notice it all the time and share that with lots of people.
Which moves us on to action matters, only 17 minutes late. The first item is
job, am I?
The first item is 7.1, scheduled retreat date. The administration recommendation is Friday, February 30th.
That'd be May 31st.
May 30th.
Yes, May 30th.
It's
Thank you.
February 30th, probably everyone would quickly vote.
Moving along.
Moving right along.
May 30th will be your last day on the board.
Could be. The second option is June 2nd. Typically, all the boards meet on the same day, so we do want to coordinate with everyone.
CSSU has already voted for May 30th.
And
Then-
in each of the meetings that I've been in, they've gone along with that.
Then I would entertain a motion that we schedule our retreat date for Friday, May 30, 2014.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It's carried. We've set
One
the-
abstention.
One abstention. The item 7.2, new course offerings. I think I need a motion to approve the new course offerings, and a second, and then we can have discussion.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
And perhaps we can have a very brief discussion by Jeff just telling us what they are.
Sure. What I'll do first is just to outline the process. Anytime there's a new course proposal, I know it's probably been a few years, I think, because we had a moratorium on them for a while. It begins in the department, so the teachers who put this together pitch it to the department first and get department feedback and approval. Then it goes on to the curriculum clearinghouse, and they must propose it to the curriculum clearinghouse. And again, feedback and approval. Then it moves on to program council, and then it ends up here with you. And so the 3 that we have in front of us, 2 of them from the business department. The first is called Pathfinder, and the primary focus is on career development and exploration. And as Common Core is focused on college and career ready, and we try to understand what career ready means. there seems to be a need, and this would be co-taught with a business teacher and a guidance counselor. And also, we'll be talking about this later, but the PLPs are now a reality, and this particular class should really address PLPs nicely, and might be a great place to help with implementation. That's as brief as I can be on that one. Do we do these one at a time, or each one?
No,
Each one,
I
okay.
think we're gonna do them all as one, because I'm not anticipating
Right, fair enough. Yep.
argument.
Could you address the budget implications?
Yes, budget implications, there are none, because these will replace under-enrolled classes. And these will run only if there is enough interest for them to run when we do the scheduling, which we are now in the process of doing. Okay, but it has no FTE implication. Second one is international business. This grew out of 2 years ago, Curriculum Clearinghouse did a survey of students in the business department. Each year they pick a different department to survey. Surveyed all the students who took business classes, and one of the number one desires from students was to create an international business class. There is a unit that is taught currently within one of the courses around international business, and it was from there that this grew. And there really is a particular emphasis now on understanding the global marketplace and understanding how we do business. And so this is a great introduction to that. And the final one is a little bit different, and that is because it's being pitched right now as a potential summer academy course. We run summer academy courses. In the past, we have run Intro to Art in the summer, and it has been pretty popular, but the nature of the course and the time that we have to execute the course made it impossible to effectively address the KUDs. And so the art department worked on coming up with some ideas around what kind of art classes can we offer in the summer that'll really engage artists, pique their passions, and still be able to address the academic integrity that they felt was not necessarily being addressed before. And so they are talking about 2-week intensives, which is the typical length of a summer course, 8 hours a day, and around specific topics. This first one they'd want to offer this year would be with printmaking. And in terms of budget implications, these are self-sustaining because people pay to take the course. So it would not run unless we had enough people to make it financially feasible.
Is this gonna start this summer?
It would start this summer. They'd like to get it going this summer. Yeah.
Would this cut Intro to Art?
This would, yes, Intro to Art in the summer would not be offered. They are looking at offering, making sure that there are enough offerings in the school year to address the needs.
Well, that relates to the question I was gonna ask, because Intro to Art is prerequisite for many classes. And I'm sure that's why it's popular choice in the summer. It's like, oh, I can get the prerequisite out of the way and go on and take photography.
Right.
And so I'm wondering if the art department is realistic in its belief that this is going to attract the same kind of enrollment that summer Intro to Art.
I don't think they're under the illusion it would create the same kind of draw yet, and that it will take some work on our part. But there are some misperceptions around the availability of summer art that we haven't done a good enough job of dispelling, that we were trying to make a more concerted effort to make it clear that if you want an Intro to Art, there are a lot of offerings to make that available to you. But we also recognize, I'm sorry?
During the school year.
During the school year, correct.
And this is just 1 2-week session?
It is.
And so this would not replace Intro to Art in terms of being, allowing kids to go on and take other art classes right away?
No, the Intro to Art would still remain the prerequisite that it is.
And so now kids would have to take it during the regular school year instead of being able to.
Right. Yeah, it was really about the academic integrity, and this comes from all the teachers in the art department. They feel passionately about this.
So is this a half credit?
Half credit, yes.
0.25?
Yeah, it's a half credit. There's a typo in the second
Okay.
one.
I'll be curious to see how this works out, because I suspect that the students who are currently taking Intro to Art in the summer are not truly artists. And that this may not speak to them at all, so it'll be interesting to see.
Yep.
And there's no prerequisite for this.
Right. Good. Is there any further discussion about the new course proposals?
I just have one question about the Pathfinder class.
Yes.
Where you say approximately 30% of graduating seniors are undecided about their post-secondary educational plans. Are these kids who are not sure if they're thinking about higher education versus something else? Or are these kids that might be going to higher education, not sure what they want to do there?
No,
Or is
I
it a
think,
mix of both?
no, I don't think it's, I think it's basically, what is it that you are gonna do after high school?
And just not, just,
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Is that a practical thing?
Yes, I believe so.
So that's really consistent with the multiple pathways and the
Yes.
goal program and all of that.
Yes. Yep, it is.
Are we set to have a vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
That one I'll go.
The ayes appear to have it. They do. We have approved the new course offerings. Item 7.3, I'd ask for a motion to approve both trips.
So moved, as long as I get to go to them.
Okay.
Second.
We have a second. If,
Try it every year.
and if, we're now in discussion, and let me say, if in discussion there is any concern about one versus the other, we can split them. And vote them separately.
You know, I
but-
am available for the China trip.
Yeah.
Pardon?
My thing is that these are really nice brochures, but where's the academic merit in these?
Well, the England, Ireland, Wales trip doesn't have any. Right, am I correct?
I think that's correct.
That's a tourism trip.
Yep.
It's not, it doesn't promise to have any. The China trip does.
Yep, I think that's accurate. And it's during vacation.
Oh.
Do they offer the England, Ireland, Wales every year?
Every
or
2 years.
Every 2
Every
years?
trip is every 2 years.
So how do you engage students who normally might not be able to afford this to go on this?
There
Because,
are, for all international trips, there are scholarships available, and there's a process that we follow for that.
And this gives me a chance to,
Yes.
to suggest that next fall, when you're talking about the budget, that we put a line item in the budget for this scholarship money, because it comes now from donations and from slush funds. Extra monies from
I think we had a
other
line
accounts.
item. You had some
they
line-
did, and it got taken out a few
Yeah.
years ago.
Have you
Yeah.
made that suggestion to Bob?
I have not, but I will communicate that. I really think it's important in terms of equity that we have that funded. That doesn't mean that there won't be some some available from those traditional sources, but we want to make sure that folks who can't afford it have the opportunity, and that's known throughout the school.
And I think that's a bigger discussion, because when you talk about a budget that's a broad base, so we just need to have that bigger conversation. I think we've done a good job getting anyone who wants to go to be able to go. But we don't know, I don't know, if people are afraid to even show
To even
an
ask,
interest.
yes.
And so but
Yes.
I don't know that you can, I don't know, look at funding.
And we're gonna have to defer that discussion
Yeah.
until the fall.
Yeah.
you can tell it's getting late for me. Did we just approve that, those trips?
No, we did not.
We haven't
We
yet
have-
voted.
All those in favor of approving the trip signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. We have approved the trips. And the next item, 7.4, can I have someone move the approval of the wood chip bid?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the wood chip bid signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. We have approved the wood chip bid. Item 8, the consent agenda. Would someone move the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. We have approved the consent agenda. Confirm the next meeting dates. The reorganization meetings are March 12. We meet at 5:30, so we meet before the CSSU board, so we can elect our representatives, and then the CSSU board meets at 6:45 or 7. So mark in your calendars, it's at the regular Wednesday, second Wednesday, but mark in your calendars that it's early.
Negotiation, is there going to be an update in that?
You know, probably, because the day before, we're gonna have mediation.
So what would then fit in?
That's a good question.
So,
But it'll come after.
it'll come after
the
our,
local meeting
Right.
before the SU meeting.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I just
Yeah.
let people
I'll
know
make a
that.
note to make sure
Yeah.
that.
Yes. But if, it's gonna be a lot easier to let our board all know about that, because we will be meeting before that executive session on negotiations, so. I think we're done with item 9. Item 10, executive session, we already spoke about negotiations before this meeting. I'm assuming we don't have a need to speak about it again.
I think we were all there.
No, then,
We were all there, I think.
yes. So we're gonna delete that. I need a motion, we can't do it here. Well, we can have the motion here and we'll go next door. I need a motion to go into executive session to discuss a personnel matter.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?